So that's why we did that, and did that in people's homes, just to be reminded of how beautiful it is to gather in one another's homes and get to know each other. So one of the main benefits of these dinners was just that relationship building opportunity. And I found that it wasn't just for me and my family, although that was certainly a great benefit, but also there were many people in the dinners who didn't know each other. So that was wonderful to see that happen, and I've seen people go deeper as a result of just that one dinner. It's amazing what that can do. So that shows you the power of grow groups, that really helps us get our roots down. Also, current and former members appreciated being listened to. There were actually a few meals that I had with people who no longer attend here, and I was able to interview them and listen to them as well. But it was very good just to hear you, and I learned a lot. There were a lot of things I would not be aware of today if you had not told me in those dinners. So thank you for being there. As far as, I'm just going to give you some key themes of feedback that I received, and then we're going to move on from there and look at the future. There was some healing still needed. Some of you expressed that it was painful at times, some of the things this church has gone through. And also, in particular, you named that there were some people who had left through the years who meant a lot to you personally, who meant a lot to this church, and it was very hard, and I understand that. That is really difficult to lose one of your family members being part of the church. And then, and in one dinner in particular, I remember someone said that they really wanted to forgive these folks, that they had some resentment toward them, and they wanted God to help them forgive. That was very positive, I thought. And then many of you talked about a culture of giving and caring, a family-like feel to the church and how important that was to you. And then you also talked about growth, numeric growth in particular. Several of you said that made you a little nervous because you didn't want to lose the family feeling, the relational emphasis that we have. So basically what you said about that over and over again was that you were very open to growth. The people that God brings to us as a church, we're ready to receive. We're excited about that, but did not want to lose the connection, which, of course, is what grow groups are all about, is just being connected with each other on a smaller scale and not just on Sunday morning. And then about staff, you talked about that you were appreciative of the staff that you have. You talked specifically about each staff member and said how much you appreciate them and how hard they work and you know what they do for us, and felt like we were in a good place with that. And then you did talk about that you wanted to see more stability, more longevity in the tenure of staff, that had been something that had been hard in the past, was a lot of turnover, so that you hoped that would be the case. And then administration, and obviously I'm not giving you all the feedback I received, y'all understand this. I'm giving you the things that were said over and over again, okay? Administration, you said that it would better communication. I always say that's the most difficult thing we do in any organization, and in the church in particular. Just not assuming that people know things, but communicating in various ways, and that's always a concern and something we want to do better at. So if you know specific ways, please tell us. Also, transparency and decision making, that was very important to you, that you know why decisions were made, at least to the degree that you can know, and then being transparent about financial matters, which is why we've been giving more financial updates and trying to make clear to you what's happening with giving and also spending. So we definitely want to be more transparent about that going forward. And then more advanced planning. You talked about just being more on top of what's coming into the future and making sure that staff are making plans in advance, not throwing things at you at the last minute. And then just better follow-up. That was something I heard a lot, was that a lot of times we decide we're going to do things, but then there's not really strong follow-up. And so then it just kind of goes by the wayside. So that was something that you wanted to see improved. Actually, more than I thought talked about the building. I was surprised by that. Many of you said that obviously we're limited because of our space, that we don't have a lot of space, and that we would like to see better curb appeal. Had a few people say that they would be willing to help with that, with planting some plants, and I would love to see you about that, by the way. There's a few things that have been planted, but we'd like to do a better job of that. Just to use our location, which of course is a wonderful location, to draw people and welcome them here. You talked a lot, really I would say, and this is the last slide for me, I would say the thing you talked about the most was outreach, really being mission focused, and then also fellowship. And you said that you wanted opportunities to serve. You wanted to be out in the mission field, not just here, but beyond, and wanted to be serving people. And really that's what this church was built on, is my understanding, is going out and serving people and saying, hey, it's because God loves you. It's, not to try to promote anything, just saying, we're here to show you God's grace. And so that's why we've been planning more events like car wash and things like that, trying to get out and serving, Parkview cookout that we did. So I know I've heard clearly from you that you want to be a hands-on, serving, beyond yourselves church, okay? And I say amen. And you specifically talked about reaching Valentine, and that is not an easy animal, right? That has been challenging, that you have had some success in that, but you want that to be more, because that's the reason this church was begun, was to reach people right in this community. And I think that Light of Christ needs to figure out how we do that uniquely. And we do know to some degree how we do that uniquely, but there are so many churches. My goodness, I just saw another one pop up right nearby. There's so many churches around us. So how are we unique? And we are. We have a unique calling from God, but really getting some more sharpness to that, I think, is going to be good for us going forward. How is this church unique? And I think one of the ways is very much a service evangelism focus, that we're serving, and that's how we witness to God. And I think that is very key to who we are. And also I would add to that, as far as reaching Valentine, we have to remember as a church that we are here for those who are disconnected from the church in this area. We're not trying to steal church members from other churches. That is not what we're doing. We're not swapping sheep, okay? We are thinking about, right, why do people not go to church who are around us? And there are many reasons that people don't go to church, and I touched on a little bit of that today. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this series, because I want us to really get in the mindset of, why do people choose not to? They're voting with their feet, right? They're going to the first church of Lowe's Hardware on Sunday morning, right? I mean, there's lots of options out there, right? We could be at Carowinds right now. There's lots of things we could be doing. There are reasons why people don't. So that's, before I start preaching, I'm going to move on. Okay. Preachers are so long-winded. I can't stand preachers. All right. Fellowship. So long-winded. He said, amen. That's just not nice. All right. All right. And then fellowship gatherings. You said, hey, we like each other. Could we spend a little more time together? And we said yes. And so we have Marcia Binion, who is going to be leading us fearlessly on fellowship events. And what we've planned, we're going to say a little bit more about. So Jeff Wilson is the head of our leadership team and church council, and he's going to explain the difference to you. And he's going to come now and tell you about, okay, so what? Now that we've heard this feedback, the leadership team has met and talked about, now what do we do with that? So he's going to give you some more detail on that. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Marianne. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jeff Wilson. I serve as church council chair, and I'm also the new leadership team chair. I guess I need to hold the mic closer so you can hear me, as Leslie's motioning. Church council is basically tasked with making sure that everything is carried out at the church as need be. We kind of oversee everything that's done at the church, and we make sure that the church's mission is carried out, and we make the strategic decisions for the church. We have gotten to a point where we have about 20 members on church council. And last year, we decided, since we were focused on our 3 major points of our mission statement, which are come, grow, go, we divided church council into 3 different pieces to focus on each of those parts. The next progression was to streamline it a little bit more. So at the beginning of this year, we created at the end of last year to start the beginning of this year, we created a leadership team. And the leadership team basically is a smaller component of church council, and we are tasked with defining the strategic direction of this church based on the feedback that Marianne received from the Look Ahead dinners. We've gone through all of that data quite extensively, and we are tasked with taking the church to the next step and figuring out what those next steps are and carrying out that plan. And we've kind of condensed it to where there are 9 different spots on the leadership team to keep it a little bit more concise and also minimize the number of times we have to get all 20 people of church council together. Folks that serve on the leadership team are all staff members who lead a ministry. So you've got Leslie, you've got Rich, you've got Marianne, and you've got Abby is out in here somewhere, I think. Beyond that, we still have the leader from each of the Come, Grow, Go sections of our church council. You've got Jan Pugh, who heads up Come. We actually have a dual or co-leaders for the Grow section. You've got Melanie Rebar and Lisa Ballard. And we have new folks that have taken over as co-leads for the missions committee. And that would be Sarah Johnson, who is actually a brand new member of our church. She just joined last month or the month before. Actually, it must have been the month before. We're now into June. And Sandra Gans has stepped up to help co-lead that. And basically, they have a dual role. They're going to flip-flop who attends the leadership meeting. One will attend one month, one will attend the next month. And the remaining 2 members on the leadership team are Pam Hodgen, who's our lay leader, and then myself as church council chair and the leadership team chair. And basically, we have the 3 different sections of our mission, the Come, Grow, Go. Come is basically to bring the unchurched to the church. Marianne's already touched on that a lot. And we're not trying to poach from other churches, exactly like she said. And you know what? If we're not the right fit, maybe we can lead somebody to another church where they are a right fit. But basically, our goal with Come is to bring people back to the church who are unchurched or help them discover who God and Christ could be in their lives or who they could be in their lives. Grow is basically for our Grow group ministries. Also, worship is covered by Grow, and it's to help all individuals within the church to kind of grow in their own faith with God, and then to help each other grow in their faith with God as well, and faith in Christ as well. Go is to basically go out and serve. Go out. We're serving in Ballantyne here locally, serving the greater Charlotte area, and then serving worldwide. Like a couple of months ago, going to Haiti. So those are the basic 3 components of our mission statement: Come, Grow, and Go. And by listening to the feedback that we receive from everybody at the Look Ahead dinners, we've already started implementing a number of things. And there are a lot of more things to come. I mean, we've got the 5th Sunday, which we have a 5th Sunday this month. We're going to have, it's a family worship service. We did this sort of on Easter, and we're going to do it again, basically bringing the kids into the service with us. But we're going to do it a little bit differently this month. At the end of the service this month, we're going to have a church-wide potluck, which is where Marcia comes in, and I'm a little afraid of that. I'm sure I'm going to get smacked in the head later today for saying that, too. And there are other things that we've done as well. I mean, we've got Harvest Fest is coming up in October. We just had the car wash, which was a great success yesterday. We had the Easter egg hunt, which was very well attended. MOPS, mothers of preschoolers, that we finished our first year, and we've committed to continuing that for another year to basically bring moms of preschoolers in and help them build their relationships with Christ. Vacation Bible School, very well attended last year. 104? 104, what was it last year? 85 last year, and we've got a week to go, and we're at 104. So that's pretty awesome. And there are a number of other things that we've already implemented or that are coming, and I don't want to go into that in too much detail and take away from some of the other folks that are going to be coming behind me. Next, we've got our Grow section. In Grow, we're working on neighborhood Grow groups to try to bring the Grow groups a little bit geographically closer, and also possibly open up the opportunity to invite a neighbor to come to a Grow group. We've been potlucks after the family service. I've already mentioned that. I kind of guess I got ahead on that one. The bingo night, we had a bingo night doing fellowship for the youth, allowing the youth to have dinners here in the church as well, to help us all grow together in our relationships, both with Christ and with ourselves. And department fellowships, new Grow groups like Sizzling Seniors, that's a new Grow group that we have. Obviously, some are really sizzling and excited about that one. And we have a new young adult grow group. So we're making a lot of progress in that area as well. And Rich is going to talk a little bit more, I think. Well, he's talking more about Come, but he's got a little bit about Grow there too. And as far as Go, we're actually introducing a couple of things. Next month, the Ballantine Y, Morrison Y, is sponsoring their, I think it's third or fourth annual triathlon. We're going to sponsor a water station, and we're allowing our parking lot to be used for overflow parking. So that's just a way to kind of help people know a little bit more about who we are, and then to serve in that way. I mean, we're serving water to the I'm not sure what station it's going to be, whether we're going to be serving to runners or bicyclists. We serve at Ballantine Elementary School. We've done that for 2 years now, the backpack program. We're going to continue to do that as well, and we're also looking into tutoring opportunities at Ballantine Elementary. Room at the Inn, we're continuing with that. Parkview, our commitment there, as well as the fellowship, and I've already mentioned the trip to Haiti 2 months ago. So we really cover and go from both a local aspect, a more micro aspect, to a macro, going out around the world in serving folks that need our service. And it's also an opportunity to help introduce ourselves to other people in addition to serving people. And it's pretty exciting. A lot of stuff is going on right now, and it's pretty obvious that it's bringing more people to Light of Christ. I'm seeing a lot more visitors, which I think is really exciting, new faces. So we're seeing a lot more people coming in. I'm going to got 3 more presentations real quick. I've got Rich who's going to come up and talk about worship. Beth is going to come up, and she's going to be talking about staffing, some of the staffing for the future. And then I've got Bill Rowe and Brian Hodgen will be coming up talking about facilities, the last piece of it. Now, they're going to bring up a lot of stuff that's probably going to raise questions. And since we're trying to be respectful of that 1 hour or less time commitment, if you've got questions, write them down. We'll stick around afterwards. I'll answer any questions that I brought up about the leadership team and how that's changed, and they'll be glad to answer questions about their presentations as well. So I'll go ahead and have Rich come up and continue on.
Thanks, Jeff. Most of you know me. I'm Rich Ginto, worship pastor, and just getting excited about all this feedback from the Looking Ahead dinners and moving forward with what God wants us to do here at Light of Christ. One of the things we talked about was in worship, and as you can see on the chart, we kind of been paying attention to the attendance. We count the numbers every week and see where we are, and our numbers have been pretty good this year. Compared to last year, I think we're at about the same, maybe a little bit better in some areas. Some of the high points you see circled include like Easter. We had 256 people at Easter, and that's one of our strongest attendances here lately. So instantly when we see the numbers increasing, and Brian's in the back trying to make sure we have enough chairs added when people come in, what do? When we moved to one service back in February of last year, it was to kind of encourage growth and the heart and enthusiasm, but we knew that eventually, as we continue to reach people and touch people's lives, that it would grow again, and that looking at the possibility of going back to a 2-service model or something similar would become a reality. So we looked into those possibilities, and as God would have it, in His divine understanding, there happened to be a webinar that was being hosted by Paul Nickerson in our conference, in our section of the United Methodist Church, and it was very insightful. And he has years of experience and working with churches and what they do and why they do move towards starting additional services in their churches. He expressed, and I'll just hit the highlights of our webinar. It was really, really good webinar, but it was only a brief version of what he can express. That there was 3 main motives that churches have for starting an additional worship service. The first one was survival. Numbers are struggling, and they want to try to reach out to people and see people come into the doors. He said the second reason that churches do it is because of space. Like with, for example, I mentioned Easter, a lot of people coming in. Oh my, there's a lot of people. We don't necessarily have the money to just whip out and build a new building. Second services stuff can help accommodate those extra people that are beginning to attend. And then he said the third reason that a lot of churches move towards that is to reach new people. And he said of the 3 reasons there, the first 2 are reactive. You see a situation and you're kind of on the reaction of it. Well, the third one, and it's the best reason, was proactive. That you're reaching new people. In fact, that's kind of what started us here. As many of you are familiar, Matthews United Methodist Church birthed this church here going on 14 years ago. And that was their vision, to reach new people. They saw Ballantyne was going to become a booming area, and they wanted to make sure that we put a light in that neighborhood so that we could reach people for Christ. So he said reaching new people was the main proactive way in order to move towards a second service. Instead of waiting for things to grow or trying to encourage things that are shrinking, that we would do what we've always said we would do as Light of Christ Church, and that's be missional and be reaching out to people, maybe getting into motion and not letting ourselves get sedentary with going out into our neighborhood and reaching people for Christ. So there's 3 key areas that he mentioned, and I won't go into great detail about it right now, but just so you kind of understand the wisdom that was expressed in the webinar, they said there were proactive strategies. And the first is the exploratory stage, and that's where we are right now. So don't be alarmed. Don't tell your friends that there's going to be a second service anytime soon yet. Right now we're at the exploratory stage where we do a lot of research and we're checking and seeing. If you go to the next slide. What he recommended they do is that you create launch teams. And what these launch teams do is they gather information, and there's different ways they gather information. They do prayer walks in the neighborhood. They research demographics. I know we've done some of that where we find out some of who lives in our neighborhood and why. And the United Methodist Church actually has a great resource called Mission Insight that gives a deeper understanding of who's living in our neighborhood and what their take is on spirituality and religion and what they want out of a church. And he also mentioned focus groups, where you're actually physically getting out into the neighborhood and inviting people to hear where they are, instead of sitting in what he called the church parlor and just theorizing what they need. You know, we could waste a lot of time and money going, I think they need this. I think they need a Saturday service. I think they need actually getting out there and asking, what do you need? What are you looking for? What would you respond to? And then, of course, getting involved in the community, getting involved, not just inviting them to things that we do, but getting involved in things in the city. Some cities have like parades, for example, or they have town hall meetings. And in fact, something somewhat proactive in this direction that we had recently was the Ballantyne Women's Expo. And we actually, Light of Christ had a table at the expo, and they got a chance to kind of get into there and touch the community a little bit, let them know we're here, and things like that would help us to feel out what's going on. So, but as I mentioned, this is an exploratory stage, and so this is a 7 to 9 month process. This is not something we just do in a couple weeks or a couple months, because we have to build momentum. He said one of the things he says is that a church service that starts small, it usually fizzles out. It's got to start with a bang and a large number for it to really succeed. So it's a 7 to 9 month process. And during that time, we build up the inertia, and it's a lot like a church planting, quite frankly. A lot of the principles that he lays out is just like church planting. And Marianne's very familiar with that because, as you know, in her previous church, that they had to do those things in order to build Faith Bridge. So same idea, just going out and reaching people for Christ. So that was where we were moving forward in regards to accommodating new services. So I guess at this point, I turn it over to the beautiful Beth Kerwood.
I like that introduction. I don't usually get that. Good morning. For those of you that I haven't had an opportunity to meet, I'm Beth Kerwood, and I have responsibility for the staff parish council here. And I'm really thrilled to be able to talk to you about that consistency, because usually when I'm up in front of you, I'm telling you about a change. So, and they've been great changes, but nonetheless, I'm happy to talk to you about some continuity. And that is nonetheless with Abby staying on, which is terrific. But many of you know the staff that we have in place, but I just thought it would be helpful to be foundational in who we have, what they're representing for us, and how that really positions us for growth. So we essentially have 2 full-time people as well as 2 part-time. And that's really the equivalent of full-time equivalents, or FTEs, 3 people. That positions us in today's environment for growth. So we do not need to add any additional staff to be able to prepare for the growth that we've been talking about this morning. We're really in a position where we could handle upwards of 400 or so congregants. With that, though, we don't want to be reactive, and we want to make sure that we're being proactive in what our needs are. So what we discussed as a group, as a larger group, and what we've heard from many of you, is that we really need to focus on that administration, but in addition to administration comes the missional work, and they are hand in hand. So as we've talked about it, and I would love to hear feedback afterward if you disagree, but is really to focus on the next staff person that we would bring on at a point to be determined. We have no plans to do this, would be a part-time administrative assistant. And that administrative assistant would not only be focused on the administration, as it would imply, but also missional focus, which has always been part of our core and has always been part of that role. So it's not something that we're asking anything different of, but the people that have filled those roles in the past have always helped us in both of those ways, both in our reaching out to the local community and beyond, but as well as helping us within our internal administration. So that is really what I wanted to ground people in today. I'm probably going to be the least talkative because I'm pretty much wrapped up. The most important and next would be the building. So I'm going to call on Bill and Brian to speak next. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Beth. What we're going to talk about today is the building and the facilities of this church. A little background, most of you know we built this facility in 2010 after about 9 or 10 years of meeting in YMCAs and various school buildings. This building right now seats 230 people. We have 94 parking spaces. We have 4 classrooms and 2 offices. Sorry, I'm trying to read the back roll, and it's a little bit tough on me here. But as most of you probably know, this building, when it was built, was probably a little too small for what we needed. We only have 4 classrooms with the number of kids we've got now. With Vacation Bible School coming up with 104 kids, we're rapidly outgrowing that need. We also don't have very many we have 2 offices for a staff of 3 or 4 people. We have limited storage. We have these 2 closets back here. That's about the storage we've got. So we need something to expand toward. And we've been thinking about this for a while. Next slide, please. Yeah, we've gone through several phases of what can we do. Back starting several years ago, we thought, well, we can build over here on the west side of the facility. We came up with the building vision for a 52,000 square foot facility. And we've got a slide for it here in a minute, and I'll show you. But it's very large, cost about $8 million at the time, and this was prior to all of the fallout with the building scandals and whatever. So we were going good for this. We thought we could really do it. And it was very ambitious. Phase 1 of that is a 30,000 square foot. These were going to be built in several phases. It wasn't going to be just 52,000 square feet all at once. Phase 1 started out as a 30,000 square foot building, but it was going to cost $6.7 million. And we're going to have to clear off all the trees, build on the other side of the power lines, and it was very expensive, but we thought, well, we can do this because the building boom was there, and we were getting very good contributions from the congregation. But this is the plot plan for the very final 52,000 square foot. You can see it's over on the other side of the wires. And the part that we wanted to start with, option 1, is the gray area down in the bottom left. It's shaded real gray. That's like a 30,000 square foot building. The sanctuary was about 1.5 times what we have now. We had a bunch of classrooms. We had a lot of offices. And that's where we really were going to go back in 2008. That's what we really thought. That was doable. It was really good. But then the building collapse happened. And we decided, well, no, we probably won't be able to do that. So that option went away. Now, we also had a scaled-down version of that for $8.9 million for 46,000 square foot. Now, the reason for the numbers being so much is we're going to have to clear this land regardless of what we do. We're going to have to tear all the trees down and grade and paving for anything that happens over on that area. So that was one option. That option is a little more pricey than we wanted to do. The next option that we have is to put trailers back here in the back. We can buy 3 trailers for, oh, thank you, for about 2,376 additional square feet. These would be basically for classrooms, which is our greatest need right now, because we can go to 2 services in this sanctuary and have plenty of room to grow. But we don't have room in the classrooms. So we really need to address that. And so we could buy the 3 trailers, put them out there for, what was the price back up? For $285,000, we can put 3 trailers out there. Trailers themselves don't cost that much, but there's a lot of preparation for that. You've got to build ramps, you've got to put in all the finished work, and that's what really costs a lot. Now, the other final phase that we could do, and we've already looked at this a little bit, is put an extension on this building straight out the north end, and it would be 3,600 square foot, look exactly like this building, be the same construction. That would be for $393,000. Now, we looked at that last year, and the price is still the same as it would be. The structure would be the same, would match the current building. It would be right up against the playground. We wouldn't lose the playground. We'd keep it. The options could include 1 other bathroom if we needed it, and also an accordion door for the youth. If we'll go to the next slide, we can see this is a preliminary idea of what it could look like. Not necessarily the classrooms would be in this configuration, but there would be room for 4 classrooms, 1 being a large room for the youth, which would be separated by accordion door. We would have 2 more offices at least, and a bunch more storage. And that's where we are right now. Of course, there would be a little more options for, we would have to go through the planning committee and all of that, but that's where we stand as far as the building and its facilities and the options that we have. That's all I got. Who's next? Oh, you're next.
All right. So, and the reason we are showing you that information is because you asked us to. That's one of the feedback items that came up more than once was, show us what's possible in the future when we're ready, when the leadership team together decides this is where we are, we're ready to expand our space, ready to take that on financially. Show us what that would cost and what are the options for that. So that's why we have given you that information. Plus staffing, as Beth said, right now we're in a good place. We're staffed well for the size congregation we have. But in the future, what would that look like? And so that's, again, why we gave you that information. Then, of course, the second worship service, which Rich was talking about, that's something that we want to begin to pray about and have an exploratory group that will pray and meet with people who live in this area, interview them, ask them questions, learn about, what's going on in our area, people who are not attending church. How can we listen well to them and then put that into practice in what we do? And perhaps that will lead to offering a second service designed to reach new people. So that's a prayer process, and as Rich said, it takes a long time. It takes months of work and prayer. So we have done very well, 45 minutes. All right. The long-winded preacher didn't go too long over. So we'll stop there, and you guys stick around, please, and ask us questions. And if leadership team people could come up front, then that way we can address what you have. Thank y'all so much for your time and for being part of us.